Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you might be listening to this interview today. I'm Tad Fowler. I'm Senior Vice President of Treasury and Tax for the Procter & Gamble Company here in beautiful Cincinnati, Ohio today. And I'm joined by Tim Zhu, who is the Chief Financial Officer for the Boston Red Sox. And I'll let Tim introduce himself a little bit. He's had a very interesting path to his current role within the Red Sox organization that I think you will learn a lot as he goes through and describes how he's landed where he did. And we'll let Tim introduce himself and we'll take it from there.
Thanks very much, Tad. As Tad said, I'm here at Fenway Park in Boston. Great to be here. And I thought I'd just start with just a quick intro. As Tad said, I'm Executive Vice President, CFO of the Boston Red Sox. Been with the club since 2003. Just a quick intro of sort of how I got here and a little part of my path. I grew up in Boston area and I graduated from MIT with a mechanical engineering degree, so really nothing to do with finance. And I think one of the things that's been fun for me is I've had a little bit of a windy road. I've done different things, especially early on in my career, sort of trying to find my way. I was a consultant at Bain & Company for 2 years, enjoyed that experience. I was an 8th grade math teacher for 4 years as part of the Boston public school system. And then I was lucky enough to get an unpaid internship with the Boston Red Sox in the summer of 2003. And from there, that sort of launched my career with the Red Sox. I was an unpaid intern that summer, joined full-time in 2004, which for those of you that are Red Sox fans, that's a good year to join the Boston Red Sox. We broke an 86-year curse and won the World Series that year. And I've been here ever since in different roles, and I've enjoyed it every step of the way.
Great, thanks, Tim. And as Tim and I've talked previously, that 2004 was a great year for the Red Sox, not such a great year for my St. Louis Cardinals. And as I told him yesterday, kick a man when he's down. I actually had tickets to Game 5, and of course, you swept us, and that was very disappointing. But I was glad to see the Red Sox finally break the curse.
Yeah, it was a special year.
Yeah, but look, Tim, you started out as an unpaid intern and have managed to work yourself into a senior leadership position with the organization. Kind of tell me how that happens, particularly in such a short period of time.
Yeah, I've been really fortunate. I mean, I think what's a lot of life is a few components all coming together. So, and I think hard work and ambition is obviously important. I feel like I've always worked hard. I've always set high goals. I've always been able to put in the hours of work. I think I've shown an ability to take initiative and be creative and sort of come up with new ideas that served me well in an earlier part of my career. And I also really built really strong relationships, both early on in my career with mentors, and then as I started to get more senior with peers, on the executive team, and with my current boss, our president and CEO, Sam Kennedy, who I developed a really strong relationship with. And just normal things you would expect: treat people with respect, be innovative, take initiative, work hard. And one thing that I've been fortunate is the Red Sox do try to reward people that they sort of see. They'd much rather promote from within than hire from someone from outside. I think that sets a culture that is sort of showing that type of initiative will work. And I've been lucky that I've done different roles in my career, but it's all been, leading towards the point where I am now, which I feel very fortunate to be in.
Yeah. So I've read some other interviews, Tim, that you have done, and how I know one of the topics interesting for folks that might be listening today is how you make connections and build opportunities. And I think you had a very unique introduction and connection with the Red Sox initially. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it was in that 4-year period when I was teaching. One of the benefits of teaching is you have the summers off. And the first summer that I had off, I worked at a software company and just kind of made a few extra bucks. And the second summer, I traveled to Australia for the whole summer. And the third summer, I was like, what would be fun to do this summer? And I thought that working for my childhood favorite sports team, the Boston Red Sox, would be a pretty cool thing to do. So I just decided, first I actually sent my resume to the HR department, and I got the standard postcard back that said, thanks for your resume. We'll put it with the other 10,000 that we get, and good luck. But then I decided, what the heck, I'm going to email the president and CEO. I didn't know his email address. I guessed at his email address. I thought it might be llucino@redsox.com, first initial, last name. It turns out it was. And I sent him an email just offering my services to work for free for the summer. And lo and behold, a couple weeks later, he wrote me back. And I was shocked that the president and CEO of my favorite baseball team would send me, this 22-year-old or, math teacher, an email. But they brought me in. I got an interview, and the rest is history. I was able to convince them to give me the summer to just see if I could help them. And it worked out incredibly. It was probably the most serendipitous, wild moment of my life when I got that email from Larry, and thought, wow, this might actually happen. This is crazy.
That's great. I love that story. On that point, I can't help but to ask the question: what if you were thinking about your current role as CFO and going back to your days as an 8th grade math teacher? Give me a little bit of the similarities of managing those two different environments.
Yeah, I think a lot about my teaching days, and I wouldn't trade them for anything. I mean, I have no regrets. Those 4 years were really interesting. I worked with kids, as part of Boston's school system. It was incredibly rewarding. All the things, incredible appreciation for teachers. I mean, I think, spending 4 years in a classroom like that, you understand how important that job is, how difficult that job is, and sort of how important it is to have people that have passion. I think in the connection to my current job, the thing that I think of the most is when I was teaching, I tried to teach with a passion that made the students know that I really cared about them. So I sort of, when they did well, I would celebrate their successes. When they did poorly, I would ride them in a way that was constructive. I know you can do better. I know you can do your homework. But it was always with care in mind, with sort of, I genuinely want you to do well. And I think you can't really fake that. And so I think that my students knew that, and they knew that I wanted them to do well. And I'd like to think I got the best out of them. And as a manager in any company, I think that's the same. You want your employees to know that you care about them. You have their back. You're going to do anything for them to succeed. You want them to do well. You want their family to be safe. You just want them to, live a successful life. And they will pay that back with their hard work and their dedication and determination. So I think just a genuine care, which then allows you to motivate people to get the most out of them, is important. But again, you can't fake that. You have to put the time in. You have to dedicate the time to make sure that you develop those relationships.
Yeah, that's great. I think what you've just described is how I would have historically described how my great mentors influenced me throughout my career. And so it sounds like your approach to mentoring has enabled you to have the success you've had. Were you blessed with great mentors throughout your career?
Yeah, I certainly was. I mean, I think at my Bain days, there was a gentleman named Jim Punahiro, who's become one of my best friends, was my first manager way back at Bain, and just taught me so much coming out of college about business, but about life and everything. He certainly was my earliest mentor. Larry Lucchino, who I referenced before, the former president and CEO, was my mentor for many years as my boss here, and learned a ton from just watching him, almost like by osmosis. Just being in the same room with him, you can learn a lot about leadership. And then the last 10 years or so, Sam Kennedy, my current boss, he's been a tremendous mentor. Not only helping me individually, but again, just being able to observe. One of the things you can learn from people like that is you just have to be in the same room for an hour with them, and you can learn so much if you're paying attention. How they approach a meeting, how they approach a challenge, how do they motivate. And so Sam has probably been my closest of the three. They've all been different times in my career, but he's been a tremendous mentor for me.
Great. Maybe switching gears a little bit. I mean, what does a CFO for a major league sports franchise do on a day-to-day basis? You think about your work plan. What's your work plan look like for the next week, and what's it look like over the course of a year?
Yeah, a lot of the things that I do are probably very similar to what other CFOs do. I'll say, keep the trains running on time type things. We create budgets, we create forecasts, we do a monthly close, we have an AP, AR, payroll, we have all of the sort of processes. We have an audit, we go through tax planning, we go through insurance risk. It's all those different things. And all of those things are the core function of any CFO, and they're really important. I don't want to downplay the importance of all of those aspects of my job. I have been fortunate enough to build a team around me that does a lot of that actual work, for me or for the club, and I'm able to direct it and sort of oversee it. And so that's sort of one category, and it's all the finance functions that you would expect. My role is a little bit unique in the sense that I also oversee business analytics, and I also oversee our technology, our IT departments. And so on the business analytics side, we're doing things like, that's our data strategy, what we're doing with our customer data, what we're doing with ticket pricing, what we're doing with anything that has to do with data. My team is going to be trying to learn how the Red Sox can be more efficient with that. And on the IT side, we're developing apps ourselves. We're looking at new technologies. We're looking at fan-facing things. And so those different three buckets are the sort of bigger buckets. But it's no different than other companies. I mean, the benefits are I get to watch baseball 81 nights a year here at Fenway Park. I have 4 World Series rings that I get to show my kids, and there's a lot of perks to the job. But the actual work is not that dissimilar from probably a lot of other finance functions that are doing very similar things.
Yeah. How big is your organization?
Well, the overall organization is probably about 400 or so full-time employees. I oversee about 30 to 40, across those three areas. We're actually a relatively small business. We're a big brand. I think if you did brand awareness for the Boston Red Sox, you'd probably get a high sort of understanding. But from a standpoint of number of people, we're actually a fairly small to medium-sized business, about 400 people.
Okay. Tim, when you look into your organization and look at, folks that are, really moving the needle, if you will, in terms of the things you're trying to do, what kind of skill or attributes do those sorts of employees possess that allow them to be the all-star, if you will, on your team?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think the first foundational things that everybody needs, like I said, I mean, you need to have an intellectual curiosity of wanting to sort of absorb, to learn and have this thirst for knowledge and growth that is important, I think, and natural in some people. The hard work and ambition you just can't teach. You do have to be able to sort of be willing to do the work. But I think one thing that I think separates people from, in my mind, well, really two things. I always say that when you can find people to execute on a well-defined task. If you tell someone, hey, I want you to do this, I want you to take this data, analyze it, spit it back into me, that's something that is not as hard to find as the thing which I think separates people is, the people who take the initiative to come to you and say, hey, I have an idea, can I do this? I thought of something that the company could benefit from. I was thinking about this challenge of this thing and ticket pricing or whatever, and I just want to bring you an idea, because I think the generation of the ideas, the initiative that comes with is not as commonly found. We have a lot of very good employees that do the first thing. They do, execute well-defined tasks well. The great employees, I think, are the ones that are bringing the creative, innovative ideas to your door and saying, I want to talk about these things. And then the final thing, I think, which really is probably the most important thing, is just the way that people treat other people, with respect and sort of team players and all the things that you'd want, to find in someone in any relationship you have, whether it's a friendship or a business relationship. But I do think it's critical that the way people treat each other is to me, someone could be the most innovative genius and hard worker, but if they don't treat people with respect, they're not going to have a place on my team.
Yeah. What you've described is very similar to how I would describe what a successful employee's attributes are at the Procter & Gamble company. And I think those types of approaches to work and those skill sets are very prevalent really in any industry. And one of the things I'm actually tasked with at P&G is I'm kind of a global sponsor for our communication skill set. One of the real challenges we have as an organization, as a finance organization, is communicating complex things in a very simple way to stakeholders that either externally aren't as familiar with the company or internally aren't as familiar with the finance function or net present values or return on capital, basic financial concepts. Is that a challenge in your industry as well? Are communication skills incredibly important?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think one of the things that is such a critical skill for particularly data analysts to develop, in my opinion, is not the analysis itself, but the packaging of the analysis in a way where the insights jump off the page. What I mean by that is, in a lot of cases, I'm a spreadsheet lover myself, so give me a giant spreadsheet and I'm happy. But it turns out not everybody's like that. My boss, Sam Kennedy, who's a brilliant executive, you show him a table full of numbers, he's not going to react well to that. But if you translate that to, different bar charts or heat maps or visuals that sort of allow the insights to jump off the page, he's going to be right there. So I think that communication aspect of doing the work, but also translating it to, a language, frankly, I mean, the point is not everybody sort of speaks the same language when it comes to data and analytics and information, and you have to know your audience. So if I'm creating something for my controller, it might have a giant spreadsheet and he's fine with it. But if I'm creating something for Sam, it's going to probably be visual. It's going to be more, he's just going to have a more visual tone to it. Because his time is more pressured. He's going to, again, those insights have to jump off the page. I don't have an hour to explain to him this giant spreadsheet. So anyway, long-winded answer, I'm sorry. Absolutely, communication, both in the way information is presented and of course, the way it's delivered, being able to communicate verbally, in person, et cetera, is critical.
Yep, agreed. So I would imagine you've got your day job, and then you've got your evening job, which I take as spending 81 nights at the ballpark a year watching games, and I'm sure you're probably on the road some as well. I know you're married and you've got 3 kids. Tell me a little bit about how you manage your work-life balance aspects.
Yeah,
of your life.
That's a really good question. The truth is, it's probably the greatest challenge in my life is learning to find that balance. I have a beautiful, wonderful wife. I have 3 kids, 7, 5, and 3 years old. And those are years that you don't want to miss out on moments at home, and you don't want to miss out on tucking them into bed and missing out on dinner or things like that. But the reality is that, when you have a senior position, especially in the last 5 or 6 months with the crisis that's been going on, there's incredible demands on time for professionally. And part of that is just what happens when you get to those sort of certain roles. And I think finding how to balance it, I'm still, if you have an answer, please, I'd love to hear it, because I'm still trying to figure it out. And I will say that you have to work at it. For me, I could work 100 hours a week and I'd never probably be done with the work. And you have to force yourself to say, you know what, time for the family, time to put it away, time to spend some time, and I think you just have to work on it. I'm not great at it. It's one of the things that I'm admittedly not great, but I try my best for sure.
Yeah. For me, work-life balance, what that means for me has certainly evolved over my 30-year career, and it's different at different stages of my life. There's been 2 constants, though, that have allowed me personally to when I've had it, why it's worked. And one is you do have to prioritize. I mean, you've got to say, I'm going to prioritize the family. I don't really care what else is going on, and I'm going to make this time, and you've got to stick to it. And I've been fortunate in my career that that's never inhibited me from continuing to meet my work goals. And partially that's because the other key attribute for me has always been having a very strong organization around me, right? People that, we can leverage each other, we trust each other, and, and they're as hard charging and as motivated to make a difference as I am. And those 2 things, when I've had those 2, I've been able to achieve my balance. But that's not to say I've always been successful like you. It's easy to get caught up in what we're trying to do from a work perspective, and trying to create value and add value. And of course, there's times where you just got to focus on the job. But
yeah, well, I think just to piggyback on that part about the team, which is, you said, is so critical and so true. For the first 7 or 8 years of my career here at the Red Sox, I didn't have anybody working for me. So I was a doer. I did the work myself. I did it. Somebody asked me to do it. I did it. And then I had 1 person, and I had 3 people, and I had 5 people, and now I have 30. But, as you gain a team, you gain such an appreciation for the importance of delegating the work. First of all, identifying the talent, identifying those stars, and building that incredible team around you. Trusting that talent to be able to do the job. Sometimes, usually better than I could do myself. You give up the reins, which at first is hard, giving up the sort of work, but you realize that as you do it, you're giving people opportunity to grow. You're probably ending up with better work in many cases, and you're freeing yourself up for other, responsibilities, whether that's at work or at home. And so building that successful team, finding those stars, cultivating them and growing them, and then relying on them and trusting them is such a critical aspect of, I think, leadership and management for sure.
Yeah. You're reminding me of a work-life balance story. When I first graduated college, I was working for an accounting firm in Kansas City, and one of our clients was the Kansas City Royals. And it was a Friday night around, I think it was, call it 4 o'clock, and we were an hour from quitting time, and we were out at, the Royals corporate offices in the stadium. And someone said, Tad, before we go home for the weekend, we've got to go out and count the number of seats in the stadium to, validate and confirm that, the number of seats that they tell us there are. And I'm like, okay, well, it's my wife's birthday this weekend, and that's going to take a while. Can I come do it tomorrow? No, it's got to be done today. So I'm out there, I'm counting seats. An hour later, they came and told me that, that was just that was their gag on the new guy. and let me go home at 5 o'clock. But it was one of those where you tell me what I got to do, I'm going to go do it.
Yeah,
just because that's what I got to do.
Yeah.
But I'd forgotten that story, but a little bit of tie in there to baseball. Let's talk a little bit about diversity in your organization from an experience point of view. How important is it for you that you've got diversity in thinking and experiences and cultures in your organization. Is that important for a successful enterprise like yours?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's critical. I think the word diversity can mean so many different things. It can mean ethnic diversity, gender diversity, diversity and experiences and previous experiences. I think it's all critical, and diverse opinions too. When I have a meeting and I throw out an idea, I really try to create an environment that encourages people to offer different views, disagree with me. If someone disagrees with me, I praise them for it. You don't want to create yes men and women all around you that just agree with everything you say, because that doesn't create an environment that stimulates thinking and innovation. And so, different backgrounds, different thoughts, it's all important. We've hired some people from different sporting teams, but we've hired people from other industries. I came from consulting. My head analyst was a trader earlier in his career, et cetera. It's somebody else that had different jobs that weren't in sports. And I think all of those experiences, at the end of the day, we're a business that's selling tickets and experiences, and there's so many other companies outside of sports that are trying to do the same thing. So you can benefit from so many backgrounds. And I think the importance of, again, diversity in every aspect is a critical aspect of the teams that we're trying to build.
Yep. All right. So transitioning, I'd be remiss if we didn't have a quick dialogue on the current pandemic and kind of what its impact it's had on you and your organization. Clearly, professional sports is an industry that requires fans to get together in large numbers to watch their teams, and that's how you generate revenue. And I'm very thankful that we've figured out a way to play baseball this year. I think it's important, and I think just having it on television, they've done a pretty creative job of making it interesting for the fan at home and making it feel like a real experience. As a CFO, though, certainly that has probably presented its share of challenges, and maybe less focused on the challenge, but more of the opportunities maybe that you have found through managing through this pandemic that might actually help the organization on a go-forward basis. What have you learned so far?
Yeah, I think you're right. When you think about the spectrum of companies, those that are thriving like Amazon and grocery stores and sort of on one end of the spectrum, and maybe cruise ships, and on the other end, sports are right near the cruise ships, I think, right now, unfortunately, in the sense that it's going to be a while before there's any sense of normalcy with companies that rely on 30,000 plus people getting together en masse. And, we recognize that. And of course, we're understanding of how important getting through this crisis is from a safety perspective. But it's challenge. It puts pressure on your P&L, of course, when revenues sort of vanish overnight, and, ticketing revenue and all those revenues are critical. I think to your point, there have been challenging aspects of this for sure. But a mentor of mine in the past once told me, never waste a good crisis. And I think that what that means is in any moment of crisis, there is opportunity to think of the positives. And I think when I think about the positives that have come out of this, I think about them in a couple of buckets. I actually think I'm talking to my employees more frequently than I did pre-COVID. We're having, bi-weekly all staff meetings. I was doing department meetings 3 times a week early on. We've shifted to once a week Zoom calls, and I'm calling now. We're not doing it in person, but I think I'm speaking to my employees more frequently because of the importance of checking in on them, making sure they're doing okay. How's your mental health? How you holding up? Anything I can do? So I think it's actually in some respects brought me closer to some of my team in a weird way, because the physical connection isn't there, but I'm feeling like I want to reach out more. So there's a closer communication with my staff. And from the innovation side, I think our creative folks, the marketing side, the innovative side, it challenges us to think about wild and crazy ideas that we never would have thought of around revenue generation or, other things. A lot of teams have done these fan cutouts, as one example. We did them, we put them on the Monster. It was all for charity. And then if people hit a home run against it, they got this wild package with an autographed jersey and sweets. And so anyway, that raised a couple $100,000 for our charity. And we're also thinking about other ways to deliver content to fans in this environment with, new technologies, new videos and all the things, and things that we frankly wouldn't have pressed as hard without this. So, I do think, look, to be sure, there's been difficult, challenging parts of this to manage it, an uncertain business, but it has also created opportunities to connect more with my employees, be more innovative, and push the envelope on some ideas that maybe wouldn't have accelerated as quickly.
Yep, great. Well, maybe closing out here, Tim, there's going to be a lot of people, I think, probably listening to this interview that are probably about their point in their careers where you were at Bain after a couple of years, trying to figure out where do I want to go? What do I want to do? What pieces of advice would you give to these folks earlier in their career when they've got such a long time horizon in front of them to really explore and find what they're passionate about and what they want to do? What in hindsight would you, what bit of advice would you give them based on looking back at your career in hindsight?
Yeah, I mean, I've been so lucky in my career. I literally pinch myself sort of every morning when I'm driving to work or walking to my downstairs to my home office these days to get started for work. I think when I think about that question, I think about a couple things. The first is try to identify your passion, because when you can work in something you're passionate about, it just makes the work feel like play. It makes it feel like it's not work. And you're going to spend 40 to 50 to 60 hours of every week, working, try to find your passion. But at the same time, you don't have to find it when you're in high school or college or even out of college. You listen to my background, and I went from, mechanical engineering to consulting to teaching to intern to analyst to CFO, and appreciate that journey. That journey is just as important as the end goal. So yes, set a goal. Yes, be ambitious. Yes, have a passion. Yes, if you say you want to be a doctor, set that goal. But enjoy the ride. Enjoy the journey. And at stops that might not work out, don't lament what didn't work out. Take with you what you learned from that experience. And I think that one of the things that I've been really lucky about is my unique different stops along my career have all taught me something about myself, about how to deal with people, about how to lead and be successful. And I've enjoyed every stop. I wouldn't trade anything I've done, any of those experiences. And so I think, understanding, especially when you're young, that it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to, make the wrong path early on. It's okay to take a windy road to your end goal. But at the same time, do those things I talked about earlier at every stop. Work hard, treat people with respect. Be innovative. Have an intellectual curiosity to learn more. Like, those are fundamental things that you should do at every stop. But don't feel like you have to plan the next 40 years of your life when you're 21, 22, 23 years old. I didn't land here as an intern. I think I was 27, and that was, I didn't even think then I was going to be, CFO of the Red Sox. That wasn't part of the goal. I just wanted to have some fun and work in sports, and it turned out well for me. So anyway, it's a long-winded answer of sort of enjoying that ride, but fundamentally following certain principles that I think apply to any situation.
Great advice. Thank you, Tim.